yesterday's news.
Hello and welcome to Old News, the programme and podcast which looks at news stories of the day through the papers of yesterday. Archibald Knox, a wonderful new exhibition, the largest ever staged in the world, we believe, just opened at the Manx Museum. Knox himself, of course, a Manxman inspired in his designs and art by the Isle of Man. What better time to look back at the papers to see how this proud Manxman featured over the years. Quite a bit, it has to be said. He was, of course, as well as being a designer and artist, a teacher, as referenced in the Isle of Man Examiner of Saturday, May the 16th, 1885, an advert for Douglas High School for Boys, Derby Square. Principal, Mr. G. Green, certificated teacher, and then we are told in the staff we have mathematics and singing, there's a happy mix, Mr. T. Green, perhaps associated to Mr. G. Green, because he's also a certificated teacher. Drill, Sergeant Wallace. I don't think we have drill at Douglas High School anymore. Junior Division, Miss Jessie Green. Drawing, Mr. Archibald Knox. Reopened, we're told, on Monday the 13th instant, new quarter, April the 20th, prospectuses for boarders and day pupils on application. We go to the Isle of Man Times, Tuesday, November the 7th, 1893. Perhaps a religious side of Knox. Church and Chapel, the Manx Cathedral question. The article is entitled, Mr. Archibald Knox, writing from the South Quay, Douglas, on the eve of All Saints, 1893, addresses the Standard as follows. Those who have their minds set on cathedral reform should give some consideration to the state of the Diocese of Sodor and Man. That diocese has no cathedral church. It is without chapter and dean and canon. There is no close with its bloated wealth and stagnation. The parochial system has full monopoly of the work of the diocese. So little does even the memory of a cathedral affect the minds of the inhabitants of the diocese that the ruined cathedral church, where the bodies of a long line of noble bishops lie, or so many of them as lately escaped being thrown into the sea, is frequently used as a picturesque adjunct for firework displays. At the present moment, the east wall of the interior of the chancel is splashed over with brimstone, where coloured fires were burnt against it as part of the festivities attending a recent wedding. The grass of graves in the nave is burnt into brown patches of earth from the same cause. A feeling is beginning to spread among younger churchmen in the diocese that a restoration of its cathedral system is absolutely the first necessity for awakening any interest in religious life. That written by Knox in 1893 to the Standard. Clearly a man of some religious conviction. Now then, something I didn't know about Knox was that he had a bit of a fracas with the steam packet. He actually took them to court over an issue. I spotted in the Times of Saturday, February the 8th, 1902, under the Common Law Division, Superior Jurisdiction, Archibald Knox versus the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company. Mr. Lay, for the plaintiff, said that in this case the time for putting in particulars of the claim had gone past and the application was for leave to serve particulars. Mr. Creer, on behalf of the defendant company, raised no objection and the application was granted. What, I wondered, was that all about? Why was he apparently suing the Steam Packet Company for damages? Well, all was revealed in the Peel City Guardian of Saturday, May the 10th of that same year, 1902. The loss of the Peveril, claim for pictures. In the Common Law Division, Superior Jurisdiction of the High Court at Douglas on Monday before Deemster Moor, the action of Archibald Knox versus the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company Limited was called. Mr. Lay was for the plaintiff and the Attorney General for the defence. Mr. Lay moved for a commission to examine witnesses in England, and the Attorney General consented on the condition that the commission should issue jointly for the examination of witnesses for plaintiff or defendants. The suit was then continued. The claim is for damages to the extent of between £300 and £400 for the loss of certain pictures which were on the Peveril when sunk in collision. Who'd have known? In the Peel City Guardian of Saturday, June the 17th, 1916, under a piece entitled Mannin, Number 7 of Mannin, recently issued, a little magazine I believe, has many interesting features. The first article, Archibald Knox, is a deservedly appreciative sketch of Mr. Knox's work by a former student of his. The illustrations given of the work of Mr. Knox show him to be a designer of the first rank. He deserves this place of honour in the volume. The contents also include Manx Miniatures, Volume 4 by W. H. Gill, which has some delightful reminiscences of T. E. Brown, June Priest by P. M. C. Kermode, of Manx Museum fame, I believe, Manx Coast Sketches by P. G. Rolfe, and Ruskin Riding's Letters. 3 old Manx airs from an MS of Dr. Clegg are given, together with folklore notes, roll of honour, notices of books and correspondence. We endorse the criticism of the note, which we reproduce. And it goes thus: those interested in Manx folk music must have seen with surprise and regret that the Manx music classes have been banished from the music festival syllabus. This is 1916, remember. These cannot be more surprised than the Manx Society Committee, to whom no official information of the fact has been sent. In the past, the Manx Society has always provided the prizes and music for the Manx classes and had fostered them in every possible way. It seems a pity that such action should have been taken by the Manx Festival Committee. The work done, however, has not been lost, and it is hoped that a future generation will value more highly the songs of the motherland. The following press notice of Mannin News. Among the contents of the May number of Mannin, which, by the way, is the 7th issue of that capital little Manx magazine, perhaps the article with illustrations on the art of Mr. Archibald Knox takes first place. The pictures in the article itself show his skill as applied to the designing of pewterware, but it appears that the striking cover design, initial letters, and most of the illustrations of this number of Mannin are his work, which justifies the editor's declaration that this may be called a Knox number. The appreciation of the Manx artist, presumably written by an Englishman, says of him, "As T. E. Brown has given the poetry of your people, so has Mr. Knox given in watercolour the poetry of your skies, shores and buildings, painted your boats, trees and bridges, flecked with sunlight and shade as no other man has painted them. If you built a gallery for his work in the centre of your isle, future generations would bless your name." Well, there is now one, at least for the next year in any case, until March the 1st, I think it is, 2026. You can go and see a beautiful collection, the largest ever collection of Knox's work at the Manx Museum. Knox's passing, his death in 1933, was well recorded in the Manx papers. We'll take the Peel City Guardian again, perhaps Saturday, February the 25th, 1933, death of Mr. Archibald Knox. The death occurred suddenly on Wednesday morning at his home, 70 Athol Street, Douglas, of Mr. Archibald Knox, the well-known painter and designer, aged 69 years. Mr. Knox, for several years past, had been an art teacher at Douglas High School in the School of Art, Douglas, and on Tuesday he was at his duties as usual. He felt unwell in the evening and went to bed, and on Wednesday morning had his breakfast in bed and spoke of going to school, but his brother, Councillor William Knox, dissuaded him. His brother left him for a few minutes and returned to find him dead. Deceased had been medically attended and no inquest was necessary. Mr. Knox, who was a bachelor, was born at Tremode. When about 30 years, he went to London, where he was a teacher at 3 art schools. He also obtained a post with Liberty & Co. of Regent Street, London, for whom he secured a large number of designs for jewellery, pewter, etc., many of which are still in vogue. They're still in vogue now. After some years, he returned to the island and had a studio at Sulby, where he took up watercolour painting, and he executed a large number of paintings for his own pleasure, and which he would not sell. These, however, are annually exhibited in the Whitechapel Art Gallery by the Knox Guild of Designs and Crafts, formed by former pupils of his, and they've also been exhibited in all the large Canadian cities. There are many samples of his art in various parts of the island, one of which is the Roll of Honour at the High School for Boys, Douglas. I believe that's still there. Mr. Knox was a very quiet, unassuming character, but he was well known and much esteemed by all with whom he came into contact. And finally, in the same year, 1933, an artist of Poetical Sensibilities, a tribute to the late Mr. A. Knox. Gallery suggested for preservation of his work. In a memorial notice to the late Mr. Archibald Knox, in a recent issue of the London Times, it is stated that it is hoped that a special gallery will be built in Douglas for the preservation of his works. The article is as follows. Mr. Archibald Knox, who died recently of heart failure at Douglas in the Isle of Man, was an artist of poetical sensibilities who had a very healthy influence upon the decorative art of his time. The Knox Guild of Design and Crafts, which has held exhibitions at the Municipal Art Gallery, Kingston, for the last 20 years, was founded in memory of his teaching at the School of Art there during the years 1907 to 1912, and it serves the useful purpose of encouraging handicrafts in people who might otherwise suppose that work of that kind was beyond their powers. Knox, who was a Manxman by birth, made many designs for Messrs. Liberty and other firms, and he was one of the pioneers in breaking away from naturalistic and period designs and bringing decorative art into closer relations with contemporary life. As a watercolourist, Knox had a distinct style of his own, eliminating details and reducing the natural scene to broad impressions in the limited scale of tones. They were essentially poetical expressions of moods of nature, most of them being executed within a short walking distance of his home in the Isle of Man. 4 exhibitions of his watercolours have been held within recent years at the Whitechapel Art Gallery, and in 1925 a collection of them was shown in the Canadian National Gallery, Ottawa, as we heard. Since the war, Knox designed several memorials, including a memorial book for the Douglas Secondary School, at which he worked for 6 years. A week before his death, Knox had just completed the designs for a memorial to Sir Hall Caine. It is hoped that a special gallery will be built in Douglas for the preservation of his work. I don't know whether there's a special gallery, but as we say, lots at the museum at the moment. And finally, very finally, Knox exhibition at museum. This is from the Mona's Herald, Tuesday, August the 27th, 1946, 13 years after Knox's death. Gifts of artists' relatives. A fine collection of 60 original paintings by the distinguished Manx artist, the late Mr. Archibald Knox, 1864-1933, has recently been given by the artist's relatives to the Art Gallery of the Manx Museum. An exhibition of a characteristic series of these paintings by Mr. Knox, together with some other notable examples of his work, will be opened on Thursday afternoon next. The paintings will remain on exhibition for a period of at least 3 months, after which a new series will be displayed. And a large series of his work at the museum, as we've heard in the news very recently. Of course, it's old news, because Knox's works have been enjoyed on the Isle of Man for a century or more. That's about it for this week. Cheerio. You're gonna be yesterday's news.